Good evening, I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged, and we start tonight with college tuition. The Arizona Attorney General says tuition increases approved by the Board of Regents violate the state constitution, and he wants to see justification. And joining us tonight is a person who can help put those increases and the cost of tuition in perspective is Bill Ridenour, the chairman of the Arizona Board of Regents. Thank you very much for joining us here today. And I do want to start off this conversation. Obviously, the Constitution says education should be nearly as free as possible. Now, this fall, total undergraduate resident student tuition fees at ASU is about $5,396 for a semester. For the year, it's more than $10,000. This marks a 315% increase in tuition since 2002-2003. Again, the Arizona Attorney General says he wants to know how we got here.
What is the Board of Regents doing to make education nearly as free as possible? And when we started looking at that question, I had our folks looking at it, I started realizing that tuition here in Arizona has risen 9 to 10 times faster over the last 15 years than the rate of inflation.
Was the Attorney General right there, and again, he wants to know how we got here to this 315% increase at ASU. It's 370% increase in tuition over the same period over at the University of Arizona. How did we get to this situation?
Well, those numbers are very misleading. When you talk about 370%, that does not take into account the vast increase in the amount of students, which are probably 55,000 additional students, and so you add all of that tuition in, and that's where you come up with the 370%.
How does that work when you say that there are more students and then you see the increase in tuition? Because my understanding is that the biggest chunk of growth in new students now that are coming here are from out of state, and the higher tuition fees.
It's mixed. So what we had years ago when we had fairly low tuition, we had no financial aid. So today the tuition is higher, but we support those in-state students with financial aid. So just 10 years ago, the state provided 75% of the cost of an in-state student's education. Today that's 34%.
Sure. So we're talking about the sticker price versus the actual price right here, and obviously that sticker price is over $10,000 here. But, after state aid, I think we have a graphic for this. After state aid, the average tuition paid in state students right now is about $3,903 per year over at Arizona State University. What we don't know is how many of these students are receiving aid, so how many pay the full price and how many are really paying nothing?
So it would depend on your income, and so most students, most in-state students receive some type of financial aid. And financial aid is not loans. Those are scholarships and other finances. So as you measure the family income, those in the lower income areas are probably paying a lot less than the $3,000.
So you're talking about, it's actually nearly $4,000 after the state is like $3,900. And if you look back just since 2006, I mean, that number has increased. In 2006, students were paying about $2,000. Now they're paying about $4,000 after they get the state aid. Even that has increased, and some might say adding additional hardships on families here in Arizona who want to send their kids to a nonprofit college.
Well, it doesn't take into account inflation. It does not take into account the additional costs that to be competitive in this kind of national market or international marketplace. So I think the universities are doing a very good job in providing access to a great number of students at an affordable price.
So you do believe that you guys are meeting the state constitutional requirement. What do you think about this lawsuit and Mr. Brnovich's actions?
Well, first of all, I think the lawsuit was originally to be about our stand on the DACA students.
Sure.
So the Board of Regents had decided to offer in-state tuition to DACA students. We knew that there may very well be litigation on that. Judicial Watch or the Attorney General, we figured might bring a suit on that. What we were surprised at was that the suit was much more encompassing or broader than certainly DACA.
Sure, but what do you think about this underlying part about accusing you guys of failing to meet the Constitution? What do you think of his actions?
Well, We aren't failing to meet the Constitution. We are providing education as nearly free as possible. And in fact, the other day, the governor came down and said, yes, we are fulfilling our duty. But we take that very seriously. We're a citizen board. We try to make sure that we have access and affordability for all students.
So will you be asking for the courts to dismiss this case?
In all likelihood, we're looking at our options right now, but you know, the cases and all that are on in our favor, and you know, so it's not really a litigation issue. It's more of a political issue, and how much the legislature funds for state aid.
So really clearly, then, you will be moving to dismiss this case?
We will be moving somewhere along the line to dismiss this case.
Okay, but what kind of time schedule are you looking on doing that?
60 days.
Okay, excellent. One other thing, though, some people have also talked about, too, maybe a potential solution to all of this. I mean, you're talking about higher costs for students in school and whatnot. Could a possible solution between the AG and the Board of Regents include maybe letting community colleges offer 4-year degrees for certain areas? It
could. We've been studying that, and so the question is, do the community colleges do that, or do the universities somehow come up with a lower cost, either certificate or degree for certain programs? And the question is, if the community colleges do it, who's going to pay for that?
And what has been the hesitancy for the board and for the state to move forward on something like that in the past? Because this is not a new idea. It's been floating out there for a little while.
We have no hesitancy on moving forward on that. In fact, the demographics are changing so rapidly, and the income levels, we need to make sure that all students have an access to a college education, regardless of whether that's 4 years through a community college or any university.
Okay, excellent. Now, I also wanted to talk a little bit about the DACA situation, because that is the other part of the lawsuit there. You know, there was a referendum that was passed years ago, and the voters said that, this population of students, some would say that this referendum said this population of students should not have access to in-state tuition. What do you say to that?
What we say to that is that the DACA status and the national program, we think, changed that landscape. So we felt going forward that the DACA students under the federal mandate, that we could offer them in-state tuition.
And where are we right now? What will when we talk about the spring semester, these students, DACA students, what rate will they be paying?
So for the fall semester, those that are already in school, that was one of the reasons we didn't change course when the Court of Appeals ruling, because those students are already in. It's a very much a hardship for them to come up with an additional money. So for those on the spring semester, unless something's decided before that time, we still continue to offer in-state tuition.
Now, again, the Attorney General in his lawsuit alleges that by doing this, offering in-state tuition to these DACA students, you could be opening up for a federal lawsuit and being forced to charge lower rates for all out-of-state students coming in. What would you say to that?
I would say, you know, as an attorney and looking at all of the federal legislation, we don't see that as any serious legal problem.
Okay, and you said that you'd mentioned, you alluded to that this might just be a lot about politics, but it is starting a conversation about tuition rates, and that has needed to be talked about for quite a while, because this is not new. People have talked about these increased rates, and again, what's wrong with that?
There is nothing wrong with that. And in fact, the Board of Regents, they take everything very seriously. We take it seriously. So we have a tremendous number of facts, figures. Every year we do a year-long deep dive into the universities and the tuition and the costs. And so we think we have all of those facts to back up what our tuition is being charged.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us here this week, but that's all the time we have for this segment. But we do have more coming up here on Politics Unplugged. Still ahead, Donald Trump appears ready to strike another deal with Democrats, this time on DACA. But not everyone in his base thinks the president is living up to his promises. And right after the break, we stick with education. Lawmakers say we need to give parents more choice and back it up with some cash. But others wonder if we are spending our school dollars wisely, and they want voters to decide. A closer look at that is ahead.
3TV News, now at 8. Jared Dillingham, Heather Moore, and Royal Norman, now with your earliest local news in prime time.
Firefighters out here right now.
Followed by 3TV News at 9 and 10. The day's biggest news and original stories you'll only see here. With Brandon Lee, Heather Moore, and Royal Norman. Get the news on your schedule. 3TV News, now at 8, 9, and 10. And only from 3TV, Arizona's family.
Diamonds, 1 carat studs, $5.99. 1 carat solitaires, $9.90. 1 carat certified, $19.90. With diamond mounting, $24.90. Thousands of GIA diamonds and designer rings. Set while you watch. Buy direct. The Jewelry Exchange, Phoenix.
I'm Joe Brown from Accident Law Group. In an accident, call me right now. As a former insurance adjuster, I know what they'll do before they do it, and I will fight for you.
Joe made sure I knew exactly what was happening. It was great to know someone was on my side fighting for me.
I can help you, like I helped Debbie, and protect your rights. Call Accident Law Group now.
Shopping for a vehicle? Come to Sullivan Motors for cars, trucks, SUVs, and more. Over 600 vehicles we need gone. All prices are slashed this weekend. Lock in your low payment like this 2016 Kia Optima, only $187 per month. And a 2014 GMC Yukon, only $227 per month. Or drive a 2014 Dodge Ram 1500, just $277 per month. Hundreds of vehicles, hundreds of deals. Lock in your low payment this weekend and get $3,000 minimum for your trade. Go to smcauto.com.
Time. Never enough hours in the day. Not enough days in the week. Early starts. Late finishes. You always make time. For work. For play. Or just to be there. There's never been a better time to create a brighter future. Whatever it is that keeps you going, hold on to it. GCU's online degree program puts you first, so you can make the most of your time.
Diamonds, the Jewelry Exchange has 2 carat solitaires for $19.90, certified 2 carat for $59.90, 3 carat rings for $69.90, and most sizes and grades of GIA diamonds, all with a low price guarantee. Buy direct. The Jewelry Exchange, Phoenix.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged, and we are sticking with education. This time, it's Arizona's public K-12 system. Now, earlier this year, lawmakers expanded the voucher program, letting parents enroll their kids in private or religious schools to get state money to help cover the cost of tuition. Well, that sparked a referendum drive. The program is now on hold, awaiting a decision by the voters next year. That has also sparked lawsuits to stop the referendum. And joining us now is Don Penich-Thacker with Save Our Schools, which backed the referendum, and Carlos Alfaro with the Libre initiative, which opposed sending this to the voters. Thank you very much for being here today. And again, lawmakers expanded the voucher program. They put a cap on it, 30,000 kids at most, which means they can take 90% to 100% of school funding and take that to a school of their choice. Why would you be opposed to that?
Well, because Arizona's public schools are starving already. We have one of the lowest invested in public education systems in the nation. We have the lowest paid teachers in the nation. We have an unprecedented teacher shortage. So all of the people who came together to oppose this voucher expansion said, while we are struggling to fund the schools that most families are using, let's not design more ways to take money out of those schools.
Your response?
There is a very necessary conversation that needs to happen in terms of funding our schools, whether it's enough or too little. This conversation about ESAs, though, it's about how we use the resources that we have today. Currently, we have students that are special needs, that are low-income minority students that are taking advantage of these ESAs and using them for a better education. And that's what educational freedom is all about, letting parents choose for their kid what the better education is.
You've heard all the stories. You've seen the stories about teacher shortages. You've seen low test scores and whatnot, all the funding that has been cut. Every dollar that goes with these kids in this program gets taken out of the public school systems and therefore starves them even more cash. How is that going to help anybody?
Well, we believe that not every kid is right for an ESA, just like not every kid is right with a charter school or private school. We support all options. An ESA right now is helping kids that are in D and F rated schools. So these are kids that are going to schools and maybe are stuck in a failing school. And ESA grants them that opportunity to get out of that. As far as the schools remaining, there's a ton of evidence. In fact, 31 empirical studies showing the positive benefits of choice on district schools. So this is, in other words, this is also helping those district schools by upping their game.
And again, a lot of parents are going to see, they hear this, they love the idea of choice. I mean, what is wrong with that? If they can find a school that meets the needs of their child better than the public school that they're looking at right now. And plus, this program is only capped at most 30,000, and by all appearances right now, they're far below the number of students that would be eligible even right now. So it doesn't even look like they may even reach that 30,000.
Yeah, so one thing that's important to remember is that there is already an existing voucher program here in Arizona. That program is almost 7 years old, and it's just over half full. So Save Our Schools Arizona has no problem with choice. Arizona is a leader in school choice. But we're expanding a program that's not even full, and this expansion, by many accounts, is going to endanger the very students that the original vouchers were meant for, students with disabilities, students in failing schools. So I think there's a fundamental question, which is, should we deal with education by taking a few students out of a few failing schools, or should we invest in all of our schools so that we don't even have failing schools in Arizona?
Have you addressed that point?
Oh, definitely. We're seeing parents right now, hundreds of parents, that because of this ballot initiative now are in pause. When they were promised a better education for their kid, now they have to go back to those schools that they didn't think was good enough because of this expansion, because of this referendum.
Well, so that's something I would like to clarify, because this law was put on pause before it was allowed to get started. So there are actually no families who had been applying and granted a new ESA. All of the families that are currently on vouchers, special needs, failing schools, they're continuing as usual. This referendum was against the new program, which did not kick in, and therefore there should be no families who thought they were going to get something that they didn't even apply for yet.
I would love to invite you to one of our group meetings with Padres Unidos or Parents United. These are hundreds of parents that are low-income minority families that saw the ESA expansion, specifically the expansion as an opportunity to take their kid out of the school that they didn't like. There's more things than just a failing F or D designation on the school. There could be bullying issues. There could be a C school, and that's not good enough for your kid. The story of Destiny Garcia comes to mind.
I think that one thing I'd like, before we get into kind of the personal, you know, this student, that student, is take it back again. No Arizona student should have to be in a school that's struggling. No Arizona student should have to be in a school that can't meet their needs. So I think that the question that we want to put to voters is, should we try to fix all the schools for all the kids, or should we take funds away from them to help one or two or this neighborhood or that? And ultimately, one thing that's important to remember is this is just putting it on the ballot. So if we want to talk about choice, let's give voters the choice. That's the fundamental thing that I don't understand about all the opposition to the referendum. Why can't the voters just decide? It'll be a yes or no vote. Yeah, we want vouchers, or no, let's keep the money in the public schools.
Real quick, if you could give us a little bit of background of where the lawsuits are on this and challenging this referendum.
And I don't think anybody's against petitioning government and getting signatures for a ballot initiative. We want to make sure that it's legitimate, and mostly because it is affecting families that could be going to better schools.
So you don't think it's legitimate, the number of signatures?
We want to make sure that it is and that it gets verified.
So, but it's already been checked by the city, the county recorders. It looks like they've got a high validity rate there. That's still not good enough.
No, we believe that there are things that should be looked at the court, and it's, again, we're not against the ballot initiative or the petition process. It's really about verifying that this is legitimate, because families are going to be off of a better education. They're not going to get that opportunity. I'll be the first one to say Arizona education has got a long way to go, but it is going to take a variety of options. It's going to take charter schools, private schools, tax credits, and ESAs to get there. Not every kid is right for an ESA, but for those kids that are, we shouldn't be putting restrictions, we shouldn't be putting regulation.
I totally agree that not every student is right for an ESA, which is why this universal ESA expansion is kind of a problem. You know, the county recorders, the Secretary of State have all come back and said not only are these voter signatures valid, but they're valid at unprecedented rates. And I think that if we, you know, trust our state leaders to make these kind of calls to do their job well, then the voters should be able to have this conversation for the next 14 months, and then in November of 2018 we'll decide what we want for our state, what we want for our schools, and whether we want to be a state that supports 95% of Arizona's students or the 5% that are choosing vouchers.
Yeah, it just seems very interesting to me that why can't we do it all? Why can't we? Because that was the same argument used against charter schools, that it was going to take away from public. And, you know, while we might be at the bottom of the list with funding or financial stuff, when it comes to academic gains, Arizona students have actually been leading the nation for the last 6 years, actually going on 7 years.
Yeah, and that's primarily due to public schools.
Public schools are involved, but that we have a variety of choice, like you said. Arizona leads the country in options, and this is one of the reasons why we've seen such academic gains. We've got to continue investing in these.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for this. Having a great conversation. I'm sure we'll be continuing having a lot more of this here in the near future. But we do have more coming up here on Politics Unplugged, and just ahead, the president seems to be getting more done with Democrats than with members of his own party. A closer look at the politics of making a deal. And a new Obamacare repeal bill is in the works, but it looks a lot like the last one. Republicans try, and try again here on Politics Unplugged.
The insurance company's looking out for their own interests as well as those interests of their insured. So you should definitely have somebody that knows the business, that's willing to take on the big bully insurance companies and protect your interests and your rights.
Call 977-1900.
We know there's a lot of other cleaning companies to choose from.
Not for me. I've tried those other guys. They just don't clean my home the way these guys do.
That's because they don't have our equipment. We make ours right here in the USA. And our cleaning solution meets rigorous EPA Safer Choice standards with no harmful residue left behind.
That's why I call.
Call or schedule online for this special offer.
Call 1-800-STEAMER. Stanley Steamer, just certified cleaner.
Hi, I'm Ron Hess from the new East Phoenix Window Depot at 44th Street in McDowell. If you're looking for new windows and doors, the Window Depot is your one-stop Phoenix warehouse. At the Window Depot, we have Phoenix area's largest selection of in-stock vinyl windows and interior and exterior doors at the Valley's best prices. The Window Depot is now your choice for kitchen cabinets and granite countertops. Come in today. Our prices can't be beat. The Window Depot. Windows, doors, and now cabinets.
Jared Valdir plays football for a living. He's 6'8", 29 years old, and weighs 321 pounds. He can bench 450 pounds. He's a strong man, a really strong man. Jared protects other strong men for a living, but he can't protect you.
On the football field, I'm your guy. But in your car, it's up to you.
If Jared blows it, it's only a game. If you blow it, it's your life. Seatbelts for life.
Thanks for letting us come into your home each week. We pray for you, and we're believing that you're going to see God's goodness in amazing ways. Stand still, and you'll see God deliver you. When you remain at rest, Almighty God fights your battles. Everybody around you is going to have no doubt the God you serve is an awesome God. I'll promise you this, every time you turn us on, we're going to try to inspire you, to challenge you, to help you become all God's created you to be.
As a victim of an automobile accident, you are the underdog. These are billion-dollar insurance companies that have unlimited resources at their disposal to resolve your claim for as little money as possible.
Murder and rope is the way to go. Call 977-1900.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. It is now time to talk it out with our partners from First Strategic. And guys, I just want to follow up quickly with that lawsuit filed by the Attorney General. What some people have called it a political stunt. You just heard the chairman of the Board of Regents actually call that a political stunt. But, you know, the fact is that tuition has been hitting people and been rising a lot for many years now. This is a big issue.
It's a huge issue, and it's sort of funny because over 70% of Arizona's population made a policy statement on how we treat DACA students, and these universities decided they're going to ignore that and do their own thing. And so to that extent, that first of all, they've exercised a political stunt on their own. But second of all, look, I don't think this case, he's made breaking news by saying that this was going to be, they're going to move for dismissal in 60 days. I don't think the court's going to grant that. I think that this is a big issue. The Constitution's pretty clear. As free as possible.
All right, now the governor weighed in on this. I want to play, Barry, I want to play a little bit of what he had to say.
I just want to make certain, or I'm hopeful that we're not going to be spending a lot of taxpayer dollars with government entities suing government entities.
What's your reaction to that?
I would say this sounds like a governor who's between a rock and a hard spot, not wanting to be overly harsh on his Attorney General, but also, overseeing the Board of Regents, he's also wanting to protect them.
And should he be pushing the legislature to pony up more money? We've seen a lot of money cut from university and state aid.
They just got the biggest bonding package in state history. I mean, they have just become the #1 developer in the state of Arizona. So I don't want to hear about money about these guys. But there is a dangerous position.
How does a bonding package help them with tuition, though?
That's a question for Michael Crow, a question I've been asking during the legislative session.
It helps them build buildings.
But let's be clear. What the governor is pointing out is that there is a danger here, and that is if you want to get as free as possible for tuition, the state legislature who has to fund this is going to have to come up for the money, and ultimately the danger is moving to a tax increase to be able to fund that. And by the way, also that would damage K-12 because the money would be only used for universities and not.
But politically speaking, the AG has put the governor in a tough spot, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Now, also this week we saw that Donald Trump and Democratic congressional leaders looked like they had a deal on DACA. We really don't know how this is all going to shake out here, but apparently, he's meeting with members of the opposition over this deal that would keep this group of young immigrants in the country, give them some sort of permanent status here. What's the significance here, of him working across the aisle here with Pelosi, with Schumer? A lot of people are saying that this is now an independent president. Are you buying it?
Well, no, he's not independent. He's a narcissist to begin with. But he also feels like he has to do something to shake up his own party. And we can argue whether he's a Republican or not, till the sun goes down. However, I would just be cautious for Chuck and Nancy to be too trusting about this guy who lies every time his lips move. And so I hope we have a deal for the DACA students. Politically, I don't care who wins. Hopefully this will become policy very soon. All right. And now I got to get this in. We're running out of time here. Senator Lindsey Graham has now introduced a bill that would repeal Obamacare. It's third time the charm this year.
Well, I've been amazed at how much media attention this hasn't gotten, frankly. But I think that actually this one stands a chance. One, because it's Lindsey Graham. I think that's tough for McCain to part ways with Lindsey on this one. He's already at an automatic 48, 47, somewhere around there. He makes some policy changes in here that I think are favorable to those Republicans who were off the boat. I think there's, frankly, I think this one stands the best chance out of all.
Will the House buy it? I think that's the whole question. question. It was will the House buy it or not?
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of appetite, a lot of political will to put this thing up again. I mean, if you listen to McConnell speak about this, if you listen to Ryan, they want to move on. They want to talk about tax reform. And they want to talk about other things.
They want to do tax reform. They want to do a budget this year. They want to do. There's a lot of things to do in the next 90 days.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have here tonight. But be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged.